Hello and welcome to BCS TV presented by Armchair Jockeys. This week we're at Sandown Park in Surrey for the Coral-Eclipse Stakes, the first significant clash between the classic generation and the older horses, and the last port of call for the magnificent So You Think. Also coming up on Armchair Jockeys, we reflect on an unforgettable Royal Ascot and its effect on the latest standings in the QIPCO British Champions Series. We identify some of the emerging talent who could still have a major impact on the series. The standout star so far has been Frankel, and we get exclusive access to Banstead Manor Stud, the place where his story began. But first of all, we look at the historical and contemporary context of the Coral-Eclipse with Lydia Hislop.
The eclipse marks a pivotal moment in the British racing calendar because annually it's the Group 1 in which 3-year-olds take on their elders for the first time. Sandown's premier race also brings together two divisions of horses, the milers stepping up in trip to 10 furlongs and the middle distance horses dropping down from 1.5 miles. It can impose a pleasing sense of order on the prevailing hierarchy. It can also be the making of a reputation.
In 1971, Mill Reef drubbed the highly decorated French challenger Caro. In 1986, Dancing Brave bounced back from his luckless Derby second. In the year 2000, Giant's Causeway established himself as the Iron Horse by rallying to beat Calanisi. And in 2009, See the Stars demonstrated his versatility by winning his third Group 1 over 3 different distances in little more than 2 months.
All those iconic Eclipse winners were 3-year-olds. What can we expect from this year's classic generation?
Camelot clearly aside, early signs from the Guineas, Derby and Oaks are neither decisive nor greatly encouraging. 24 individual horses from those 4 races ran at Royal Ascot last month, and none of them won. However, this vulnerability is not reflected on a wider scale. Every horse in Britain earns a rating, not just the top class ones, and all reside on the same continuum. It's therefore worth examining how the 3-year-olds are faring against their elders in the lower handicap grade, in which horses carry weight on a scale that increases in direct proportion with their rating. This reveals that 3-year-olds are faring slightly above par against their elders in these races to date. Among the older generation in Saturday's Eclipse, title holder So You Think bids to emulate the likes of Matoto and Halling by winning this Group 1 in successive years. At the age of 6, he would become the oldest horse to triumph since the race was first run in 1886 when Bendigo won. So You Think has an official rating of 125. It's starkly evident on paper that his opposition among the 3-year-olds have a great deal of improvement suddenly to find simply to live with him. However, his peer, Cityscape, and the 2 years younger Nathaniel are comparable. Will they be as effective in this scenario? Breeding offers encouragement for Cityscape's first try at the Eclipse distance. Selkirk, his dad, was a top-class miler, but 7 of his 9 most successful children all thrived at 10 furlongs or more. One of Tantina's other sons was also best at 1.25 miles. Cityscape produced the best performance of his career to date and earned that mark of 125 when stepped up to 9 furlongs for the first time. The Dubai duty-free was fast on the clock and he was still going on strong at the finish. Nathaniel's pedigree is packed with stamina. Influential stallion Galileo was himself world-class at 1.5 miles, although his offspring display versatility. Magnificent Style was at her best at 10 furlongs, but her top progeny have blossomed over further, like Nathaniel, whose 2011 King George victory is his peak to date and earned that table-topping 126. However, So You Think outpaced him, finishing 2.5 lengths ahead the last time they met over 10 furlongs.
So that's the fascination of the Eclipse in a nutshell. Who will be king of the variables?
Well, Lydia and I have now been joined by Steve Mellish. Fascinating stuff, Lydia. Perhaps the most fascinating statistic you came up with was the fact that So You Think is bidding to do what no horse has done since the very first horse to win the Eclipse Stakes.
That is amazing, since 1886. I was really surprised I was going back through the records. I was sure I'd come across a 6-year-old at some point. He's so tremendously consistent. He's a 10 times Group 1 winner, and I think he showed in the Prince of Wales Stakes at Royal Ascot that he still sets a very high standard in that division, and of course he's the title holder.
Barring 2 runs on an artificial surface, he's run his race every time. He's run some sort of race every single time. He is remarkably consistent. He was very consistent in Australia. He's just as consistent now.
Do you think that he is the standout horse over 10 furlongs?
Yes, I do. I think he is. In the absence of Sirius Desaigne, I think he is.
Steve?
Yeah, he it's a phrase we use a lot, but I think his is the standard, and I think he's pretty sure to run to it as well, that other horses are trying to attain.
A horse who lost his unbeaten record at Royal Ascot but gained new admirers is Far. He's trained by Saeed bin Suroor.
Where do you think with a clear run he would have finished at Ascot? Do you think he would have got close to, so you think?
I thought the last 100 yards, I thought this horse is going to win the race. From the way he finished the race, he showed a good turn of foot, plenty of speed, but I thought last 100 yards, I thought he's coming to win. But was just, we say, unlucky in the race.
He's really come of age this year, hasn't he, the two runs. You mentioned the fact that he's been slowly away in both of them. Is there anything you can do to try and work on that, or is that just, you think, how he is?
No, I mean, we know that the problem when he was 2 years old, and from that time we school him, we take him many times to the stalls, exactly after the exercise. And he was fine, no problem, but when he sees the crowd and the horses there, different horses, he don't like it sometimes. But I think we have we put in our mind for the future to take a good position early in the race, take him the last one in the stalls.
He still has a problem with the stalls. It began when he didn't race in the race he was intended to meet Frankel as a 2-year-old at Doncaster, and ever since then he's had an aversion. He's reared in the stalls on both starts this year, and I'm not sure whether that will always be a problem with him. And also, given that meant that he got into the Prince of Wales Stakes later last time, and he was held up at his run on the inside rail, he had trouble in running, didn't get a clear run. I wonder whether, because he wasn't in the heat of the battle between Carlton House and So You Think, whether he might be a little bit flattered as well.
Interesting. Do you believe that, Steve?
Yeah, take the point. Sometimes horses can be flattered if they find trouble. At the moment, I think he's had 4 runs. I think both Thirsk and Ascot show he's really improving. He's very lightly raced for what he is. And I do think he's got a lot of talent, and I do think on the balance of things, I don't think he was flattered. I think he would have been a good second at least.
Last year's King George winner Nathaniel may just have been about the best horse over 1.5 miles for 3-year-olds last year, Steve. How do you think he's going to fare this year?
Well, one, we haven't seen him, and that hasn't been the plan. And the other thing he has to prove, is he every bit as good at 10 furlongs as he is over further? He's good. He ran well in the Champions Stakes, despite not having a good draw. He showed a good level of form, not quite up with his 1.5 mile form, and I remain to be convinced that he will be fully effective at the trip.
I don't think he's thoroughly exposed at 10 furlongs. It was a wide, difficult draw in the Champions Stakes at Ascot. They had to make quite a bit of use of him. Whether that saw him to best effect, I'm not entirely sure. But intrinsically, the official handicapper has him a pound better horse than So You Think. I don't buy that. I feel that So You Think, certainly consistently, but probably anyway, is the better horse.
The past winner of the Coral-Eclipse Stakes is twice over.
So I find him a very difficult horse to get right. I was very impressed with his win in the International last year, beating Midday and Await the Dawn, and the manner of that victory rather surprised me. On his day, he's a very good horse, but this is a tough Eclipse, I think.
And the other thing as well is that when he has had a little dip in form, there's normally been a confidence booster for him. There hasn't been one this time around, Steve.
No, I agree. I think the doubts are whether he's quite capable of running to his best, and at his very best, is he good enough to beat the likes of a So You Think? I think that's debatable.
A fascinating runner stepping up to 10 furlongs for the first time is Cityscape, and he's trained by Roger Charlton.
We had a good winter, really, a dry winter. We were able to do some good work here. So he went to Meydan fit, did very little when he was in Meydan, just cantered, and as we know, produced a stunning performance. Quite where he found the turbo booster that produced a sort of course record and had them off the bridle and destroyed them, really. But it's great when you see a 5-year-old doing that. First time at 9 furlongs, and as we said earlier on this morning, that 10 furlongs would be worth trying.
I think it's an underrated horse. I think he showed when winning at Newmarket end of 2010 that he was a potential Group 1 horse. He showed that in Meydan with a really good performance in a good time over 9 furlongs, not stopping. We don't know he'll stay 10. He gave every indication that he will. In terms of class, he is right up there with anything in this race, in my opinion.
this is his moment to step forward, and I think he's ready for it. I think he's matured into a top Group 1 horse. I think there's signs in his run style that he should get the 10 furlongs. I think there's encouragement in the dam side of the pedigree for that, and there's versatility in the sire side of the pedigree as well.
God, the two of you, the positivity, I can't handle that.
Come
on, throw some negativity on him.
I find it hard to be negative. I think if he runs to his best, he will be involved.
And he's a good-looking horse, Rishi.
Cute?
No. Strong.
Good-looking horse.
Sri Putra was second in the Eclipse 2 years ago behind Twice Over. He's trained in Newmarket by Roger Varian.
What a good race he ran at Ascot again this year.
Yeah, he ran a great race, Steve. I was just saying, he almost ran, on distances anyway, a better race than he ran last year, and he was, I think, 6 lengths behind So You Think last year, and finished third. And I think we were only 3.5, 4 lengths behind him this year, and we didn't quite make a podium finish. He was 5th. But no, we couldn't really ask much more for him. It was a very solid run, and once again at a very highest level, he turned up and ran a very solid race.
Well, he has got a great record. I mean, was it placed in 2 Eclipses and great record in the Prince of Wales before, as you say. What is it about those races you think that brings out the best in him?
He seems to relish when there's a very strong pace and on a proper galloping track, and he likes, although it wasn't fast ground at Ascot, he likes a sound surface, which he's had in the 2 Eclipse runs, and he had at Ascot last year.
What would he be? How high?
I'm not sure on mistake. He'd be 16 hands, I think. But he's solid, I mean, people would see him who don't know him and think he's fat, but he's just his shape. He's got a huge rib cage, and he always carries. You look at him every night, evening stay, and think, "God, looks like he's just coming from a field from a holiday."
Yeah, well, great.
And funnily enough, when he won at Kempton first time out, Andrew Balding had that side glance from him, and Ian Balding was at Kempton. And after the race, he came up to me and he said, "Well, when I saw him come out in the pre-parade ring, I looked at your horse and I thought, well, we can put a line through him. He'll need a run because he's so big."
Yeah.
He's had 3 runs and he's still that size. He's just.
You're just used to him. You just know.
Just know his shape. Yeah.
Sri Putra is a horse I've always admired, Steve. He always carries enormous condition. He always seems to have a big old gut on him.
You admire him for his tummy?
Yeah. Well, even though he's having all these hard races, he's had a lot of races. All the way through the season, he's still got a good belly on him.
He does himself well. He's one of our own.
More often than not, he runs his race, and I thought he ran his race when 5th in the Prince of Wales' stakes last time. That suggests that he's not going to be good enough to win here, or probably even be second, but he'll be playing around maybe for the minor placing.
Well, a 3-year-old who failed to handle the experience of Epsom was Bonfire. We can hear from his connections now.
He just quietly didn't fancy the track, and he didn't handle it at all, and I knew from a long way out that we weren't going to run a race. The trouble is, if they don't handle Epsom, they normally have a harder race than they would do if they did handle it, and it took a hell of a lot out of him. He lost a lot of weight, but he seems to be back in good form now, and he's, we're looking forward to the Eclipse.
The 3-year-olds were still trying to work out where everyone stands, and I think it looks quite an open year, Camelot aside, but it would have been nice to see the Dante form work out a little bit better, but all our questions will be answered at Sandown.
There were 3 things that went wrong at Epsom. He didn't settle, he didn't handle the track, and he didn't stay the 1.5-mile trip of the Derby. Sandown is more straightforward, so that's a good thing for him. It's 2 furlongs shorter, again, I think that's a good thing for him, and there'll be less razzmatazz here at Sandown on the Eclipse compared to the Derby, which is one of the biggest cauldrons of sound that you get in the flat season. I worry that intrinsically he's just not good enough, that the Dante form is not good enough.
My selection for this year's Coral-Eclipse Stakes is Far. I think he'll add to Godolphin's excellent record in the race.
I'm going to go for that lovable, cute, white face, cityscape. And I think he's got the form as well. I think he can prove himself over 10 furlongs.
Cityscape for me. I think he's already proved himself a Group 1 horse, and there's every chance he'll be just as good, if not better, at 10.
Well, following on from a fabulous Royal Ascot, we'll look at the latest in the standings for the QIPCO British Champions Series. And first of all, the sprint category, where we've had 3 individual winners so far of the 3 races.
We have Littlebridge, Bated Breath, and also, of course, Black Caviar, a little bit below her best, perhaps. Are we going to see a dominant sprinter in this division? Bated Breath is the consistent one, isn't he? And also being based over here, unlike the other 2, we're going to see him for the rest of the year, I think.
The July Cup's a race which often has horses coming down in trip. You get ex-classic runners coming down to sprinting, or we might see Celebration coming down from a mile. I think that's a fascinating race to see. The situation could change at the next race.
Yes, potentially you could have Dabus dropping down in trip, having not quite cut the ice in sort of the Guineas distances in France and elsewhere. And then you've got Pearl Secret, who's a really exciting young sprinter who won here at Sandown last time, overcoming a bad draw despite his inexperience, and he could enter the scene in the Nunthorpe.
Okay, but what about the miling category? It's pretty simple so far. It's been all about one horse.
Yeah, I mean, Frankel has been utterly dominant. I've no doubt he'll win the Sussex Stakes, and that's it's a job done. There is no other miler, I'm afraid.
And he is likely to then leave after the Sussex Stakes and take in the middle distance category, which would then leave it open for who would be the next dominant horse. But whoever comes through will still be miles behind Frankel.
Yeah, it depends on what they do with Acceleration. His entries seem to suggest that they might try sprints, and then after that, it's up for grabs really. Because I still don't think we have a definitive miler amongst the classic generation. I know that Most Improved won the St James's Palace Stakes, but it was a messy race, and I still think we might see horses emerging there.
In the middle distance category, it's still also a little bit up for grabs. We've got 3 horses who are currently dominating it: Camelot, So You Think, and Sir Nicholas Abbey. Of course, Frankel's going to play a part in that towards the end of the season.
He might frighten a few people away for 10 furlong clashes, so I think the middle distance is going to be really interesting. The mile and a half races, and two horses who ran the Hardwicke, Sea Moon and Dunedin, could well feature in them. I think it was a good Hardwicke this year.
And it seems as if the middle distance category is once again an in-depth one, lots of strength to it.
It so often is. I think this is where we're going to see the really huge clashes at the end of the season. I mean, potentially we could see a horse taking on Frankel. Perhaps St Nicholas Abbey is the likeliest of those that we could see from the Coolmore 3 that you just mentioned. And Camelot is, after he's taken on his own generation, might be moving to a different discipline.
He might be going into the long distance category, which is a category that I thought would be really easy to work out at the start of the season. I thought, well, there'd be Fame and Glory and Sadler's Rock, but now Colour Vision has won the Gold Cup and he's gone to the top of the BCS rankings. Is he going to stay there?
Quite possibly. It's such a hard race to work out though, because it was conducted at such a crawl. Fame and Glory was so inexplicably disappointing. There was a bit of a schmozzle between the first and second Colour Vision and opinion poll at the end. Other horses were bearing down late on them, and I think there's another emergent horse, isn't there, Steve, given what we saw at Royal Ascot?
Well, there's Simonon, who won 2 races at Ascot, and just the 3 horses who finished in the Gold Cup, the 3 together. You could argue the case for either of them turning out the best horse in a more truly run race, and Simonon definitely comes into the mix. I think the target is the Goodwood Cup, and he's earned his right to go there.
Simonon, Sadler's Rock, Colour Vision, opinion poll, Fame and Glory. That'd be a cracking race in the Goodwood Cup if that happened. But the fillies and mares category has been a difficult one to work out because they're racing over such a variety of distances.
It's a wider span of distances, isn't it, than the other divisions that we've spoken about. And again, do we have a definitive filly stepping forward? Amongst the younger generation, we thought it was the Fugue, and then along came Princess Highway in the Ribblesdale and blew her away. Maybe the Fugue was flat. We thought we had Homecoming Queen, but her form hasn't stood up since Newmarket. And then we've got Fallen For You in the Coronation Stakes, who does seem to have asserted, and maybe there's a filly we haven't yet seen amongst the 3-year-old generation. How do you think they stand, Steve, against the fillies in both the staying and the miling divisions?
I think it's I think the waters are muddy. I really do. I think you just summed it up. I don't think there is an obvious dominant figure. I'm not even sure there is among the older horses. It'd be nice. It'd be different later in the year when Dancing Rain comes back. I think she established herself truly at the top of the pecking order last year. If she comes back, it might be different. But I think it's all up for grabs.
I was really impressed with Princess Highway though at Ascot. I think that she could be the big star, certainly over the middle distances for the fillies and mares. She just travelled with immense ease. I know it's always a little bit dangerous when you're racing against fillies who've just been at Epsom, but she was dominant then, and she has beaten the Oaks winner as well. Yeah,
I agree. If there is a horse that has come out in this division, I think it is Dermot Weld's filly. I can't really knock her. I thought it was a really, really good performance, and hopefully we will see her coming back to Britain and taking part in races like the Yorkshire Oaks and the British Champions Series Fillies and Mare Stakes at the end of the season.
Okay, well, although it's just still midsummer, there's still a lot to come in this year's QIPCO British Champions Series.
Prince Khalid Abdullah owner of racing superstar Frankel, has created one of the most enduringly successful breeding operations in the world. Banstead Manor in Newmarket is one of his stud farms where his horses have their second career after racing. Stud manager Simon Mockridge gave us a guided tour.
Prince Khalid has really concentrated on the breeding side over the last 30 years. You know, very early on in his career he was active in the yearling market and spent a tremendous amount of money. And at that same time he bought an awful lot of very, very good proven mares, which have ended up now being the sort of catalyst for where we are now. You know, breeding is like raising a family at the end of the day. You have to understand, you know, the little traits and the problems that each individual family bring to you, and also their strengths.
So this is?
Dan Silly.
How old is he? I heard that's 16, is that right?
He is 16, yes.
He's in great nick.
Problem with all of these things is, you know, once a horse starts to get established, is they're almost middle-aged.
Yes.
And, you know, now that he's probably now recognised as probably one of the leading sires in England anyway, along with Oasis Dream.
Yep.
But it takes them some time to actually get themselves established, and then before you know where they are, they're 19 and 20.
He was a very good racehorse, but so you could argue he's an even better stallion, isn't he?
Yes, I mean it was quite interesting when he retired to stud. What we have to remember is, although his dam now is heralded as probably the best broodmare in the world, you know, having produced 5 Group 1 winners and 7 Group 1 horses in total, he actually was the very first of her progeny. And although he didn't manage to win a Group 1, he was placed 7 times at Group 1 level, and he always raced in the very highest of company. And he was tough, sound and genuine, and that's what we tend to see in his stock. Ascot was testament to that. We saw Bated Breath just beaten over 5 furlongs. You saw Fallen in Love winning over a mile, and then you saw Thomas Chippendale winning over a mile and a half.
Absolutely.
So, you know, he gives you a full range. It just depends on the type of mare that you send to him. You see, the one thing about this horse was, when he did retire to stud, because he didn't come with a Group 1 profile, he started life at a very low fee. He was only 8,000 the first year he came to stud. And he's actually driven himself all the way to the upper levels, and that's based on his success. He didn't really in the early years have the strength and depth of mares that we're going to see with Oasis Dream.
Right, and obviously it would be, I know you may or may not have it, but it would be the same with the Frankel. He will start off at the very top because of his racing record, won't he?
Well, he's got a marvellous racing record, he's got a marvellous pedigree, and it's only right that he'll probably get some of the most choice mares around.
Yeah.
This is Oasis Dream.
I should say you wouldn't get a much better looking horse, would you?
No, I mean from a stallion manager's point of view, the moment that he actually came to stud, he was the perfect horse to have. He's got everything, you know. He was champion 2-year-old. He was champion sprinter. He's got the looks. He's got the conformation. He's immensely powerful. Great second thigh. Great quarters to him. Very good through the shoulder. And for a sprinter, he's a very athletic horse. Great walker. Shows himself exceptionally well. And the benefit that he had over Dan Silly, for example, is that he was popular from day one with the commercial breeders. And today that is so important to get the horses off to a great start. And he'd covered over 100 mares for the first 4, 5, 6 seasons without having to have his feed dropped, which is very, very unusual in this industry. And his yearlings and his foals sold exceptionally well. He was then champion first season sire, which of course puts you straight up at the top. And he's continued that way. He's leading British-based sire last season, as he was 2 seasons ago. Dan Silly was leading sire in 2010. So we've been very fortunate the last 3 years.
And although he was obviously champion sprinter, he's a really, really speedy horse himself. And probably as a general rule, he gets a lot of very quick horses, but he doesn't only get quick horses, does he?
No, again, but his pedigree actually shows you that he should get a little bit further. I mean, physically, he's very much like his father. You know, he's built like a sprinter. He has a great strength and quality of his quarters, and he has a great way with him. But within his pedigree, there are elements that suggest that he'll get further, and you know, Midday is a great example of that.
Absolutely. Again, really good-natured.
No, he's a very good boy. We call him Brad Pitt.
Yeah, he is. I can see why. He is rather nice.
Do you want to see the mares in the field? Both in foal together.
They went at the same time, and
Midday was covered on Valentine's Day. And Kind was covered on the 16th. And they came back at the same time.
Absolutely, and they're in the same condition. They've formed quite a bond, Midday and Kind.
They have, as I said to you. I mean, what's quite unusual is if the mares had been on our farms, they would have been separate because one was a maiden and one was a barren mare. But as they went to Coolmore together, and the value of the mares, and we tend to have an understanding with Coolmore that we keep all our mares together in one barn, and whilst they were there they ran out together. They were the only two in the field, so since then they've become inseparable.
And that's just been natural?
Just natural, absolutely.
Midday and Kind, they were pecking order, or are they sort of equals?
Well, Midday always came with quite a feisty reputation. Her mother is slightly like that, but since she's been back at stud, we haven't seen that at all. And really, I would say that Kind is the dominant figure.
And this would be her 5th foal coming up, is that correct?
Yes, she's got the 3 currently in training, 4 currently in training. Morpheus is the 2-year-old with Sir Henry.
Yep.
It's by Oasis Dream, and then she has an Oasis Dream yearling. The pedigree of this mare suggests that she should get staying animals.
Yeah.
But by the same token, when you look at her physically, you can understand where Frankel has got his power and speed from.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, she's an immensely powerful mare herself. I think when you look at Frankel, there's an awful lot of this mare in him.
Yeah.
You know, he has that great power behind the saddle, and he has a very similar hind leg to her.
You were saying the signs early on were positive. I'm not saying you thought, this is going to be the best racehorse of all time. That would be ever so bright. But you thought he did stand out. You said even when he was here, when he was first foaled. Is that correct?
Yes, he was born here, and what I would say about him is he was a tremendously well-balanced individual, and as a foal from day one, he was almost like a foal that was a week old. He took everything in his stride. He was very easy to deal with. He seemed to know all about life before he did, really.
On to Midday, you say she settled in well to life here, and I mean, you can't tell whether they're going to be a good mother, but she gives all the signs?
And she gives all the right signs at the moment. She's nice and settled, she's got great attitude, wonderful outlook to her, and so far so good. She had a little bit of feistiness when she was in training, but you know, there's nothing wrong with that. She needed that to be the high-class race mare that she was. Yes, and I hope she'll take to the maternal side of it just as readily as she did racing.
When will they give birth, roughly? When can we expect these?
Well, probably the 2nd week of January, so we all look forward to that.
Steve Mellish is a very, very lucky man. I would love to have gone to Banstead Manor, Steve. They are an outstanding breeding operation.
I am a lucky man, Rish. It was a tremendous 2 hours, loads and loads of high points. For me, the pick would to see the bond, the friendship that's formed between Frankel's mum, Kind, the matriarchal Kind, and the flighty Midday who's been retired this year. They are such good friends.
And Lydia, it doesn't matter what the big race meeting is, Juddmonte Farms are at the forefront of it.
Yes, it's a thoughtful, well-conceived operation, and therefore it endures. And only last month at Royal Ascot they were the leading breeding operation in their own silks. They had Seamoon, who won the Hardwicke, and of course Frankel, who won the Queen Anne so outstandingly.
Yeah, the money bandied about, or the figures bandied about in relation to how much Frankel is worth, is not even worth thinking about. It's far beyond my puny calculations. But Steve, Lydia, thank you very much for so far on the show today. Don't forget that on our next show we're looking ahead to the Falmouth Stakes and the Darley July Cup at Newmarket, and the King George VI and Queen Elizabeth Stakes at Ascot. But from Steve, Lydia and myself for now, from here at Sandown, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.